All right, my name's Brandon. I am once again driving a Audi A4 2015. I am working my way through a cold brew with a Splenda that's incredibly disgusting.
I love the fact that you drink it and you know it's disgusting. That's my favorite part.
It sounds disgusting.
I'm Morgan. I am currently sitting in my 2007 Volkswagen Jetta, currently with 263,000 miles on it. Engine is smoking a little bit, and sitting here eating a bacon maple bar from Henry's Deli.
Yuck.
Cheers, gentlemen.
Pastor Troy, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah. First of all, I don't eat donuts, guys. Donuts, yuck. What was that, maple bar with bacon?
Hold on. Let me show you up close.
Hey, no wonder we're all dying. We're all dying. It's just a bunch of fat pastors, man. I'm in an Acura 2012, and I do not, honestly, I can't remember the last time I had a donut. Now ice cream, I'm the ice cream guy. So if you had I like an Oreo Blizzard, that I'm good, but donuts, absolutely not. I do have a Diet Coke though. I'm a Diet Coke guy, so that just to let you know.
Okay. I'd be all for pastors and cars eating ice cream too. That sounds pretty good.
Oh, I like ice cream. Like I'll go to McDonald's. Okay, this is what I do. This is bad. Sunday night I'm at church. I'll go to McDonald's and I'll get the Blizzard? Not the Blizzard. What are they called?
McFlurry.
McFlurry. That is my sin right there.
Man.
Troy, you might not have known this about me. Do you know that donuts are my kryptonite? They're like my all-time favorite food, donuts.
Really? Yeah. No, ice cream, Oreo. I'm not a donut guy. And usually when it comes to desserts, it's only if it's worth it while I eat it.
So, Troy, if you had to pick between McFlurries or Dairy Queen Blizzards, which are you going? If you could pick.
McFlurry. Yeah, McFlurry.
Really?
And I have no idea why. None. My wife the other day, seriously, she says, we're not going to McDonald's, we're going to go to Dairy Queen. And she made me have a Blizzard at Dairy Queen. Yeah, that just happened 4 days ago. We were going nuts. And she said, we're not going to McDonald's. So, and that's the only reason I go to McDonald's.
Now, Pastor Troy, you mentioned your wife. Now, all of us are married here, and we're all in different seasons of our marriage. So Morgan's been married for 10 years. I've been married for 5. You guys have been married since probably
30 years. Come on.
Let's go.
You think I know what I'm talking about after 30 years?
Pastor Brandon, how many years have you been married to Pastor Di now?
I should know this. 28 years.
Wow.
You should know it.
Good answer.
Good answer.
Now, we're all in different seasons, though, of our marriage. Morgan and I, we're young with kids. You guys both have adult kids now. Pastor Troy, why don't you tell us something fun you and your wife do? What is something fun you guys have done, maybe recently or all the time?
Yeah, something fun we do. First of all, so we're like everyone else right now. We're at home and quarantine and all that kind of stuff. Well, the other day, we were getting on each other's nerves. It was funny, and I hope she's listening to this. I can't tell you the last time this has happened. We were so kind of getting on each other's nerves. So she went I was sitting in the backyard enjoying the sun, and she went to the front yard with the sun just because she wanted to be by herself. I'm telling you the truth. So I rocked out there. I said, what's going on? She's going, I like the front yard better. She was totally lying. Oh man, no, it's fun to yeah, first of all, I absolutely love marriage, and my own story, both myself and Janet come from broken homes, so for us to see God's healing in our marriage in the last 30 years and really be the first married couple in our whole family to really make it's amazing. But what do we do for fun? We have doing date night for probably 30 years. We used to do it on Thursday night, but Friday, and every Friday night we just do date night and try to really prioritize each other. When our kids were young, like your guys' kids, I would find the babysitter. So that was the role. I would never play, because Jenna wouldn't ever ask anyone to babysit. But I would find the babysitter when our kids were young, and actually, kind of developed 4 or 5 people that took care of the kids. They were really kind of family members. They became family to our girls. So date night consists of everything. Sometimes they're fun, and sometimes they're just a drive. It's a movie. You're always hoping it ends with sex, which that's when it's a win. Right?
So
that's why we
kind
appreciate
of
you, Pastor
Troy. Keeping in the theme of quarantine fights with your spouse. Do you want to hear the biggest fight I've gotten in with Di in like 5 years? It happened last week.
Please.
You ready, Morgan?
I'm
so
ready
for this.
So I was so annoyed because I wanted a graphic made so that I could post it on our church's social media. And I was texting around all my staff, and everybody was off work. And so I was just wandering around the house venting about how I couldn't find anybody to do this. And I said some harsh generalizations like, no one works, no one's putting in 40 hours, this is ridiculous. And I didn't mean it, but unfortunately my wife, who's also on our staff, heard me say it, and she went up to me about an hour later with a detailed log of everything she'd done for the last week, how many hours she would work, and literally verbally undressed me in front of everyone in the house, and was mad at me for 3 days afterwards. So let me say publicly, my wife is the greatest employee. She works so hard. She works way more hours than she should. I am terrible. I am wrong. Please forgive me.
You may be wrong, Brandon, but every pastor's feeling that right now. Like who's working? Can I get a stinking graphic? I so understand that. But yeah, it's a crazy moment.
Wow.
That's
Pastor
great.
Troy, now something, you said you and your wife have date night, and, hopefully it leads to, continuing to seal the marriage. That's, I think, every man's hope. Tell us maybe of the best vacation you guys have ever been on.
Best vacation. Yeah, marriage has seasons. So when your kids are young, there's, you do vacations like that, and then when you are empty nesters, you learn a whole new vacation routine. So right now, we've only been empty nesters 3-4 years and still learning a vacation routine. And we find getting away more often, especially Janet. She loves going away to a hotel for a couple nights. She also likes sun. So we're talking about we want to follow Brandon and Di and go to Hawaii all this time. That would be good. And so last year we went to Maui and just had 4 or 5 days just with each other. So I think it's just a matter of, for us, getting on the calendar more often. She would prefer 3 or 4 times a year to get away and truly detach. So, but we're falling in love, and this is our last 5 years with cruises. We're enjoying that a little bit. Just if I can get her away to sun is the key.
Pastor Troy, you guys went to Italy a couple of years ago, right, with Convoy?
We did,
Were you
yeah.
on that? How was that? Did you like Italy?
Yeah, I loved it. Jen and I are not weird. We're not big travelers all the time, And so when we travel, we have to really think about it, give us thought. But it was a great time just to see the world from a different perspective, and we had a phenomenal time.
Now you're
can I add to that?
Did you like the gelato? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, Brandon and I were there together. Brandon.
Yeah. Can I make fun of Troy? Am I allowed to?
You can do that. As long as you can take it back. As long as I can make fun of you.
All right.
Yes.
So first off, this must not have been a very memorable cruise because Di and I hung out with Troy and Jana that entire cruise, but apparently you forgot.
I should have brought it up.
I'm just kidding.
We did. We went. Go on.
No, I was gonna say I'll let you tell that story. My favorite thing about Troy was I didn't know Troy didn't travel that much, and so I travel all over the world, right? And so when we got to the cruise, I don't know where we're going. Everything's familiar. Everything's unfamiliar, excuse me, but I'm kind of used to that. And Troy was so out of his element. Like, Troy is always in charge, always knows what's going on, is always in control, and he had no clue. It was like a deer in the headlights on this entire cruise. Horns are sounding, people are lining up to do the drills, and Troy it was so fun to watch that through Troy's eyes.
Yeah, no, that's one of the things that most people don't know about me is I only travel because I love speaking, I love impacting, but yeah, traveling is not something I totally get into. Like Brandon, I want to be more like Brandon when I grow up.
So tell them what we did. Tell them we rented those cars.
Well, my question is, how do you afford all that travel, though, Brandon?
Great. I travel smart. I go when other organizations pay for me to be there.
Yeah, no, I got you. So what did we rent that day? We went out and rented what were those like
little Fiats.
Yeah, and we drove around, and it was just kind of a crazy moment.
So we drove all around Florence in these little old like 60s Fiats. It was pretty fun.
Oh, that's awesome. That's my favorite city I've ever been to, Florence.
Yeah, we need to get those pictures back out and post them everywhere.
Yeah, I'll post a couple of them after this, after people watch this.
Yeah.
Now, Pastor Troy, you guys have been married for quite some time. You guys have done ministry for quite some time. You were also a youth pastor. We're all part of the guild. What is like one secret, one takeaway you would say, man, this has helped my marriage while doing ministry together?
Yeah. First of all, my wife I couldn't do life without her. I mean, we do life, we do ministry together, heart and soul. When it comes to like one secret of doing ministry or life or even marriage together, here's the one secret I tell men. We need to listen, and stop talking. If we just could listen instead of fight, argue, we are logical. We want everything to be logical. When my wife, how do I say this? When we get in like the other day, I just need to shut up and listen and not try to solve all of our problems. If I'm telling you, men could just not worried about being right, worried about, winning the argument or whatever it may be. My key with Jen is I really try to listen and I try to learn her without her becoming like me. I don't want her to become like me. That's the last thing I want. And so whenever we get a moment of tension, whenever, like right now, I mean, it's just a crazy moment. I have just learned if I could just stop talking, listen, and listen not for the words, but for the heart, and not even worry about if what she's saying is technically right. It's irrelevant.
That was really good.
It's irrelevant. The other day she was saying things, she's probably listening to this, that weren't technically right. I'm just going, honey, yes. I just listen. She wasn't right, but it doesn't matter. I need to hear her heart and not worry. But not worry.
All you need to do to fix that is just go sunbathe in the backyard. Let her have the front yard. You're good.
Well, yeah. So yeah, I just think marriage is awesome, but we really, the Ephesians scripture where husbands love your wives as Christ loved the church. I just think we got to do a better job loving our wives as Christ loved the church and giving ourselves for. And I just think a lot of we men can be stubborn. We can make it about us instead of making it about them.
That's really good. That's good.
So one of the things that I always remembered about Troy is Troy and Jana were always doing ministry together. So Troy's, I think he's 4 or 5 years older than me. So I was in Bible college when Troy was first a youth pastor in Renton, and they were the first real example of a husband and wife legitimately both having a call and anointing to do ministry, but figuring out how to effectively do ministry together. I know that happens a lot nowadays, but back when Di and I first started out, there was pretty much Troy and Jana as an example, and maybe Wendell and Jenny Smith, and that was about it. No one else really did ministry together like that. Troy, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, we're both, again, she's called, I'm called as a calling. And I think for me, it goes to a larger principle as her husband, that I want to do everything I can to help Jana be her best. I want her to reach her full kingdom potential in every way. I hope by being married to me that at the end of the day, she's a better person. She's more like Christ. And so it's always been that for us, heart and soul ministry. And you got to divide it a little bit. I mean, yeah, you can't always be in the ministry mindset. You got to remember that your lover's first, that we're married before ministry. But I just, I couldn't imagine doing it any other way than just doing ministry together with my wife and letting her in her own right stand as a minister of the gospel and as a person that's a leader, all within her right.
Yeah, that's really good. Oh, sorry. For us, Brandon and Di were kind of the spitting image of this for Nicole and I, growing up and really getting married and starting at Canyon Creek together years ago. But one of the things that I noticed a lot in Pastor Brandon and Di's marriage was that they were willing to make sacrifices for each other's calling to always continue to progress. And I think that's something that we as ministers, especially married and doing ministry together, have to have in mind is both callings are still very important. And that's really hard for a lot of people to accept when we live in a culture that's so focused on us progressing in one direction or the man progressing and moving forward. But it's also about the calling that's on her life too. So
yeah, I think one of the scriptures that we kind of miss where it says the two shall become one. There's a beautiful harmony of that oneness, but there's still that individual calling. So it's really understanding that concept, how they work together. I mean, Jen and I are one, and yet we also at the same time unique callings. I think a lot of times we get that really mixed up. We want to be so much like each other that we don't really realize the uniqueness that God has on each of us, and yet we do that as one.
That's good,
man.
And the reality too is there's certain opportunities that maybe would work great for someone else that doesn't work for like a husband-wife ministerial team, both having unique callings, that it might work great for someone else, but it doesn't work for us. And what you ultimately have to do is you have to say, God knew what he was doing when he brought us together, has a plan for us as husband and wife ministering. And the reality is there's some churches where the husband-wife collaborative team kind of partnership, co-pastoring doesn't work. But fortunately, we both lead churches that not only appreciate it, but actually find it a strength.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Brandon. It doesn't look the same for every married couple. You really have to find out what works for you. And to me, it comes down to listening to my wife and what's best for our family. You got to be careful not to put everyone into a particular mold.
Yeah, that's good.
Man, I will never forget, Pastor Troy, one of the first times I'd met you. It's like 6-7 years ago, man. I was just starting out. and you were talking at some youth pastor function. I don't know. There's been 1,000 of these things now, and everyone and their mothers got one. And you had introduced yourself as, hey, my name is Pastor Troy. If you want to talk to me about how to have a good marriage, come talk to me. I love my marriage. I love sex, and I love chicken. And I thought, that's the man I want to listen to for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Why don't, yeah.
My wife and I joke, she says, what I love is chicken and sex. I mean, that's what I love. that's how you keep it. That's how you keep it fun.
Simple.
Yeah, interesting. The conversation of sex is always interesting to me.
Yeah.
I don't think that sometimes we don't talk about it, and yet we let the world talk about it all the time. I think intimacy and sex is a healthy conversation, and it's one of the first things that I think of. It's a symptom. If something's going wrong, if that's not happening correctly. So I think a lot of times we don't talk about it, and we need to talk about it in the church, and we need to. I had someone one time approach me, and they said this: "And when you talk about sex, you're really not being serious. That's not for like us who are really godly." And I said, "No, that's for us who are godly. That's for all of us to really celebrate with our wives." And so, yeah, these conversations are good ones to talk about. I think we need to talk about them more openly with married couples.
That's good.
So what I want to know is, what is your favorite chicken?
Any chicken, honestly. I mean, yeah, I don't have any particular. I can, whatever chicken is out there, I can eat.
So have you ever heard of Heaven Sent chicken?
Heaven Sent chicken, I have not.
Or Ezel's chicken?
Yeah, I've heard of Ezel, yep.
Okay, I refer to it as legal crack. Every time we do a staff function, almost pretty much 2 out of every 3 times my staff is stuck with Ezel's or Heaven Sent.
All right, I will write that down.
I brought a salad to the last function because he had Ezel's catered. I just knew. Pastor Troy, we're almost out of time. Why don't you, real quickly, you have a funny story, since you've known Pastor Brandon for such a long time. You guys have a funny story back when you guys were youth pastors, or maybe something you guys did together?
Oh, Brandon, what stories do we have? We've known each other for so long. Remind me of a story, Brandon. Anything I can tell you?
Well, I remember one. Do you want me to share it?
Yeah.
Okay. I would say this, by the way, it shows the depth of the type of person Troy is at the same time, the quality of leader he is. It was, looking back at it now, I'm going to bet Troy has totally forgotten about this. It probably was, he probably just wrote it off and didn't think twice about it, but it has forever made me love this guy even more. So Troy had just become the DYD, and I was leading a bunch of camps, and a guy that was a really good friend of both mine and his, Roosevelt Hunter, was speaking at the camp.
Yep.
And I was, needless to say, I would say I was slightly out of balance back then. I was really heavy revival-ish. It was like, pray at the altar, skip meals, let's see Jesus. I mean, all those things were good, but it was a little bit, I was a little bit out of balance. I wasn't just dabbling in the river, I was swimming in the river at that point. And so we're at the middle of this camp, and I am just like pushing the kids to go even deeper spiritual. Troy shows up mid-camp and hears me just blasting the kids at the camp. And I was probably out of line with what I was doing, but Troy pulls me aside afterwards in front of Roosevelt, and Troy blasts me. I mean, lets me have it. And in the middle of this, Like Roosevelt's like, dude, you're both right. He had to know Roosevelt. He's like, Troy, I understand what Brandon's doing. Brandon, I understand what Troy's saying. Troy and I wanted to hear nothing.
Yep.
We both were mad at each other, and that was that. Well, I left for 2 weeks I was speaking at a bunch of churches in California, so I was out of town for 2 weeks. I thought, Troy's a jerk. I'm not doing any network youth events. We're done. And so my first Wednesday night back at Bethany, I was back when I was at Bethany. So I'm getting ready to preach, and I look in the back, and Troy is in the service. And I was like, I thought like we were enemies at this point moving forward. And so I preached, did the service, everything was good. And afterwards, Troy comes up to me with tears in his eyes and said, he apologized. I burst into tears, say, I'm sorry. And at that moment, I just thought, wow, not only is this guy a visionary leader, but he's a leader that will say, when he admits when he does things wrong. And I'm not even positive Troy was wrong. But for the sake of relationship, he humbled himself and did that. And actually, I think from that point on, it endeared Troy and I to each other.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. Just Roosevelt, you brought up his name into all that conversation. I think he was the one that aggravated us.
It was his fault.
That was probably true.
Brandon and I've had cool moments like that where it's iron sharpening iron. It's a heart and soul relationship. So, yeah, it's fun, Brandon. The longer we're in this, the deeper, people you've known for years mean the world to you. So, yeah, it's been good to see what God's done with our relationship over the years.
Awesome.
Yeah, you appreciate people that have kind of stayed the course, finished the race, kept the faith. You appreciate that.
You really do way more than just these relationships come and go. You appreciate people that you've known over the years. Well, how long have we known each other? 30 years now? As it?
Yeah, I always say that you're one of my friends. I've got like a lot of you that I put in this category that are we get really busy, so we don't see or talk to each other. And then 6 months later, we run into each other, pick up right where we left off, promise that we'll do a better job staying in contact, and we see each other 6 months later.
Yeah. But we're still close.
We're busy.
Yeah.
Well, Pastor Troy, you should invite Brandon and Di over for dinner, and the ladies can sit in the front yard, and you guys can sit in the backyard.
Let's do it,
Andy, and I will bring Azel's chicken.
Yeah. Now, hey, you guys will appreciate this. I just got a text from my wife. She says, "Did you leave?" I forgot to tell her we had this conversation. So right now, I have to call her and tell her it's Brandon's fault.
Well, hey, Pastor Troy, we're going to let you go. We can't thank you enough for joining us today. And whenever you're free, I know you're speaking at mega churches and network stuff. When you're free, you come speak at the youth ministry about chicken and sex. We'd love to have you, man.
We will do it, man.
Really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, blessings on you guys, man. Keep yourself safe. This is a great hour for the church. I think I'm going to be doing a webinar next week on how to recalibrate your church after COVID-19. I think it's a great hour for the church to recalibrate. So you guys are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Thanks, Pastor Troy.
Thanks for your time, Troy.
All right. Take care, guys.
See ya.
All right. See you, bud.
Uh-huh.